Hey, Rob. Welcome. Welcome to my thank you for you to sending me an interesting issue of a France magazine. So I'm kind of responding to you, but I'm responding to all the other people out there who are France aficionados at this point. All three or four of you. Uh, so what happens? So what happens is about literally only like 3 or 4 days ago, Rob Huffman and I are talking, and he finds a listing for a presumably a France magazine called Manhood, an issue of a France magazine from 1963ish called Manhood, and I'm like, well, that looks a lot like it has to be an actual issue. I mean, all the detail. You know how sometimes Amazon listings are very obscure and you can't quite tell exactly what product you're gonna buy, and I'm like, it seems like it must be an actual France magazine, and so we've been, rather rather obsessive about trying to find some of these France magazines. And next thing I know, 2 days later, because my birthday is coming up, I get the issue of the magazine. But I literally, like, Amazon is really good about turning it over in such a fast. Um, I can't even explain it. How, right? How many other people have really been buying this issue of Manhood via Amazon's apparatus, right? So what happens is what happens is we see here we see, if you can see it. It's got a picture of a sort of antiquity, right? Antiquity. So on the back cover, it ascribes cultural significance as well as quote unquote public domain to this issue of France magazine. So it's an issue of France magazine that we'd actually found a scan of previously on another site that was kind of fuzzy and things like that. I think this is from the same scan, but how much can I share on here? Well, here's a cartoon from the issue. I can't share most of the images of the females. We have Jean Nieto. We have short stories like "Give Her Hell" by quote unquote David Grinnell, who just might be one of the most important sci-fi paperback paperback editors and distributors of all time. Manhood. Manhood. So so this would have been an 8 by 10 magazine, roughly 8 by 10. Now, of course, in its reprint version, we're down to about maybe like 6.9. And then, as you saw, again, I can't show you here on YouTube. I can't show you all the dirty pictures, unfortunately, because that's what matters. But, you know, I can't get through a page. I can't get through a page without an image of a naked lady. So, Manhood, Volume 1, Number 4 from 1963. You could see that the images, so it's already shrunk down from the original magazine size, then shrunk down into what is a square bound and glued. I'm sure this actual copy didn't exist actually 3 days ago or so. Like, this comes right hot off the press, Amazon on demand, printing, and boom. And then it's like in the mail. Rob even said to me, he's like, "You got that already?" It was in the space of about like literally like a day and a half after we were talking about it, and here it is. We've again seen this issue before. There are color images. There's a color cover, a few color images throughout. Not here. It's just a very basic, fuzzy, muddy, small scan. But it does say this work is in the public domain in the United States of America and possibly other nations. Possibly other nations. Within the United States, you may freely copy and distribute this work as no entity, individual or corporate, has a copyright on the body of the work. Scholars believe, and we concur, that this work is important enough to be preserved, reproduced, and made generally available to the public. We appreciate your support of the preservation process, and thank you for being an important part of keeping this knowledge alive and relevant. Published by Hassel Street Press, an imprint of Creative Media Partners. And we have a URL, support.creativemedia.io. We've got a we've got a USBN. We've got the imprimatur of, again, antiquity related to a France magazine, and then that very nice blurb on the back. My favorite part, no doubt, is possibly other nations. This work is in the public domain in the United States of America and possibly other nations. So I want to thank Rob Huffman, obviously, for sending me a birthday present, even though we've seen this issue before. To see this issue in this form or fashion is absolutely amazing. So to dig a little bit deeper, I recognize a number of the number of ladies in the photos, including Jean Nieto. Jean Nieto, you can go to Edward Wednesdays and read an article I've written about Jean Nieto, who was in Revenge of the Virgins, reputed to be a movie that Ed Wood was somehow involved with via the quote unquote Pete LaRoche pseudonym, which in matter of fact, Pete LaRoche is a real guy. We'll talk about that more at some point in the near future. There's also one or two pictures here of Delilah Jones, who is a friend of mine on Facebook at current. So that's quite wonderful. All these, this is 1963, so that's 5 years before I was born. So all these years later, that is quite wonderful. There are short stories and articles here, including Giver Hell by David Grinnell, pseudonym for I'll let the cat out of the bag to a degree. Pseudonym for Donald Walheim, one of the most but I mean honestly important editors, distributors, paperback folks during that whole entire time frame when science fiction through the 1940s into the 50s really started to take root. And Sin and Sci-fi, right, Rob? This is why we're talking about Sin and Sci-fi, because here it is. Donald Walheim produces paperbacks, Lord of the Rings, Tolkien, when Tolkien's initial publishers had unfortunately failed to copyright them in the United States, and it ended up benefiting other publishers more than it did Donald Walheim himself. But in this particular issue of Manhood, there happens to be a short story by him. There's also short stories by a few other interesting people, and we're going to continue, obviously, to talk much more about that when we talk about Sin and Sci-fi in the 1960s, the France Revolution. Thank you. The sun is too bright. The sun is so bright in my eyes right now, I can't even see the button to stop recording. Thanks, everybody.